don't do that.
Yeah, I don't know anything about racing. This is true. You're right. You're in the wrong show. You're watching the wrong show if you want to hear like super engineer stuff.
Honorable mention, Alpine, because hello, French Revolution.
And welcome back, everybody, to I look at Evan's tag and I want to say Fast and Furious.
That's where I got it from, man.
I figured.
Of course.
Welcome back to Fast and the Furious. No, welcome back to Hitting the Apex here. We got a short one today, but a good one because we had an interesting race in Monza this past weekend that we want to kind of shoot the crap with you guys about, and definitely want to get your take here with Vish and with Evan, as I mentioned earlier. Guys, it was the Italian GP. I know that Ferrari was out there, and the crowd was really excited to see the Tifosis. The Tifosis were out there excited to see the guys come out and produce and be competitive. And look, to be honest with you, they were, right? They looked really good throughout practice, throughout qualifying, and even in the race, they did all right, So pretty happy about the outcome there with Ferrari, as it looked like really some things going in the right direction. But apparently nobody's going to beat Red Bull this year. So another race gone by and another Max victory. So I want to get you guys, Evan, since you're not muted right now, go ahead, give us what you thought about Monza.
No, I mean it seemed like exactly what we thought was going to happen. Max Verstappen was going to run away with the race, which is what he did. But Ferrari did put up a good fight. That low drag package that they had there really seemed to work. The only thing that hindered them was they were fighting each other the entire time. It seemed like they couldn't. If they would have had some type of team rules get implemented or something like that, team orders, to get it to where one of them would have stayed ahead and the other one would have followed. Maybe they would have been able to at least make it a little bit closer. At this point, they were behind Perez by over 11 seconds and so far behind Verstappen that it was hard for them to do anything. But those Red Bulls are just so fast, man. It's really hard to keep up with them, especially in a straight line with that DRS.
Yeah, Vish. Obviously you saw a nice start by Carlos Sainz. He ends up in P3, as I mentioned earlier, and Leclerc in P4. But a really nice start by the Ferraris. Obviously, at the end of the day, as Evan mentioned, the pace, the race pace is just too much. It's too far ahead of what anybody else is doing right now with those Red Bulls. Talk to me a little bit about what you saw in this race. What could have happened, if anything, that could have made Ferrari come out with a victory in this one, or even P2. I mean, Checo obviously drove a nice race as well, but your thoughts on just the whole race, the race as a whole, and Ferrari as well.
Yeah, I mean, Ferrari was impressive. I thought Sainz in particular just made it difficult to overtake. You could see how much faster the Red Bull is once it got in front of him. So I think he showed something. He wasn't giving those spots up easily. He wanted that win, but obviously it's too much to hold off the Red Bulls forever. But he did an amazing job there, and holding Leclerc off as well, as Evan said, because he took a lot out of his tires, having to hold up Checo at the end there, but still had enough left to. Although he did ask for, we should just hold position. Yeah, easy for you to say when you're in front, but he held it legitimately because they let them race. And yeah, no, he drove a great race. Monza's such a unique track. It's hard to take too much forward from here and say, oh, okay, they've made a step forward, because it's kind of that. It is that low downforce. Evan and I talked about this last week. it's a power circuit. It's very unique, so it's hard to say you can take some of that stuff for it. But it's good to put on a show for the home fans there for them, and it was good to see for a decent chunk of the race another car in front, and to see Red Bull actually have to work to make an overtake instead of what usually happens, which is just breeze past on the straight. So I thought it was an entertaining race, one of the better ones we've had this year.
Yeah, definitely. The rest of the field, of course, after Max, it's like forget about it, right? Everybody else is so far behind. But I guess we can kind of go over the summary of the race as far as standings and the top 3 finishers. But we can kind of look at the whole standing. Oh, did you guys do predictions? Because in my head, I did one and I forgot to send it over to you. But what
We
did
did.
anything close to what happened?
We did. I didn't write them down. I wasn't prepared.
What'd you get? What'd you at least go for? What'd you do? What did you
I know I
predict?
picked Verstappen. I think I had Perez second also, so I think I got the top 2. But I went with, I believe, Albon third, right? Isn't that what I said?
Hey, let me tell you, Albon, what a kick-ass race he drove too. So
Yeah. We were saying last week as well, that's another slippery car. That's another car with a low downforce package that really can exploit Monza. And coming out of the final turn, the Parabolica, it really, plays into the speed of that car. He came in 7th overall, which again, any top 10 finish that you have for a Williams is going to be a plus. So
yeah, really good showing by him. A little bit disappointed with McLaren only having Lando in the top 10 and finishing 8th. I thought that maybe they had an opportunity to do a little
well.
bit.
Hamilton took care of Piastri. So.
Yeah, he did.
No, I can't really blame him for that one. Yeah,
hey,
you notice Piastri though got fastest lap of the day. He was going for it at the end of the race, like everybody does, but that car still shows a lot of speed to be able to get the fastest lap of the race at the end of the race like that. Hey, you get an extra point for it. Well, no, I don't think you get it if you're not in the top 10.
No,
right?
he didn't get the point, but he took it off Max. That's why Max only has the 25 points. So,
exactly.
haha, joke's on you, Max. 25 instead of 26 this week. Look at that, loser.
Yeah.
Is it? I mean, we've seen now that Piastri. I think Piastri's gotten Lando in what couple of qualifiers now, right? Is it 3 times where he's been faster than Lando? So is this safe to say that Piastri is really? I mean, is he quicker? Is he faster than Lando right now?
I think they're putting them in the same car. It really shows that Oscar Piastri's got that talent to be up there with these other drivers. It's just that experience. Everybody keeps on saying he's gonna be a future Formula One champion. You say that about 5 or 6 different guys or 7 different guys in the field right now. But he's definitely one of those that can be up there. Give him another year or 2. Give him another a bunch more races. To get acclimated to again the speed, but. That he's like how Russell was a couple of years ago in the Williams, where Russell and the Williams could qualify up there with anybody, but in the race is where everything starts to kind of slip back. Just like with this race here, you had that tussle with Lewis Hamilton, which kind of caused that. Even though Hamilton did go up to him after the race in the pit lane and kind of patted him on the head and was like, "Hey man, I'm sorry." He apologized to him from what everybody from what the reports were. Was that he went over to apologize because he felt like he was in the wrong in that situation. So again, Oscar Piastri, he's going to be an up and comer. He's going to be somebody that's going to push for that. And maybe if Lando leaves to go someplace else, maybe Red Bull or Mercedes, maybe he is able to slide into the top spot there.
I like what you did there, Evan, because you kind of segued perfectly. I see what you did, man. I see what you did there because Helmut Marko had some choice
Learning
words.
from the best.
I like that, man. Helmut Marko had some choice words over at Red Bull this past weekend after the race, and throwing his boy Checo under the bus a little bit and saying it's a shame Lando is under contract for a long time because he would be a candidate. I mean, a candidate for what? Are we firing Checo? Like, this is crazy, man. Helmut Marko.
I don't think he was saying they're firing Max. So
no, that's for sure.
But
right?
also, this is a little bit of just bluster because I still don't think Red Bull wants a legitimate challenger to Max. I think they're Look at the results on the screen. This is exactly what they want. Checo in second, way off in the distance, not challenging Max.
Right.
That is what their goal is. They want Max to comfortably win, and they want another car in second. You put someone like Norris in there, they're capable of beating Max. Not every race,
consistently, but
challenging them, making it a pain in his butt, and they don't want that. That's not Red Bull's MO.
It would be a Rosberg situation all over again. Where you have somebody who's equally as talented, who's equally as motivated, maybe even more motivated because he doesn't have the wins or the championship that Max Verstappen has. I mean, look at the situation. Or I don't believe Lando Norris has a win in F1. Imagine putting him in that car. He's going to be more motivated than Max Verstappen to be able to push him to that next level. And he's got the qualifying pace, even in a McLaren, to be able to be up there with him. At this point, imagine if he was in the same, machinery. And, it's a dream at this point. But, again, it's one of those situations that it's what you have to think about, if you are a Lando or even a George Russell with Mercedes, are they ever going to make him that top guy? Carlos Sainz, are they ever going to commit to him in Ferrari? No, none of those drivers know because, Charles Leclerc is still number one. Lewis Hamilton's going to be number one in Mercedes until he decides to hang it up. And until that happens, that second seat at Red Bull could be anybody's best chance to be able to win a championship and win races consistently.
We don't mention George Russell around here, right, Evan?
Well, we can mention he went straight coming out of the pit lane, just cut the corner and got the penalty.
Yeah.
Both Mercedes drivers had penalties. Yeah, he did George. He actually out qualified Hamilton. Hamilton had to go on to a different strategy to get those places back. And George Russell had a decent race, but he still did his George Russell thing where he's coming out of the pits.
George Russell.
Ocon's in front of him. He's like, screw this. He just cuts the corner, gets the penalty, but there was no one close enough for him to take advantage. But I have never seen him back out of a corner and just admit it's not his. It's always run into someone or cut the corner and whine that it wasn't fair. And I think last week, Evan, you talked about his racecraft isn't there. That's one of those where on this circuit, you get away with it because it's a power circuit. You can make those 5 seconds up, but you just it's tough crap. You came out in a bad position out of the pits. It happens to everyone. You got slotted in behind that car and overtake it legitimately. He just went straight through the corner. It's just like, forget
the most difficult turn.
Alpine, I'm George Russell.
The most difficult turn on that circuit is turn 1 and 2. Is those first 2 corners right there, that chicane right in the beginning. Everywhere else on that track is basically there's more difficult go-kart tracks that these guys have driven in their life. Monza, but the fact of the matter is Monza is still one of the best racing tracks in the world, and that's why it'll stay on this, on this schedule for however long, the contract is there for, but probably even past that, because it is the home of, it is the temple of speed. It is everything that everybody wants to see in Formula One. They want to see cars go fast. They want to see those red cars stream by at 190 miles per hour, 220 miles per hour. They want to see that happen. And, no matter how easy you can call the track for these cars, they're going to be, and, but when it comes to the level of racing, it's going to be a procession. It's going to be, this was probably the most exciting Monza race in the past 5 years. Would you say? I mean,
yeah, it was nice.
Overall, there was fights all along the grid. There was teammates going at it with each other the entire race. You saw Piastri and Norris go at it. You saw Lewis and George, or Lewis and Piastri go at it. You even saw, Sergio trying to have to pass, the 2 Ferraris. That was difficult for him. So it was a good race overall.
Speaking of that, before we get to driver of the day and finish up on a couple of things here, I mean, speaking of being fast, how about that AlphaTauri just missing the top 10? Liam Lawson, not Yuki Tsunoda. Yeah. Liam Lawson, who, first of all, is not even your regular number 2 over there at AlphaTauri. It's obviously Daniel Ricciardo, but he's on the injured reserve right now. And bring in Liam Lawson. And look, the last two races, right? I think he was 13th last 2 weeks ago, and finished 11th this one. I mean, that's a really good spot for AlphaTauri. and it's a rookie, Liam Lawson, doing it. Are you guys excited or impressed with Liam Lawson, the way he's driven so far? And is he a guy that could potentially tell Ricardo, you're gonna have to wait till Checo gets fired because you're not taking this seat back from me here at AlphaTauri?
I mean, I don't know if they would particularly do that. I always like to think about football. You don't lose your position over injury. But then again, this is Formula One, and you got to go with the hot hand. And if the hot hand right now is Liam Lawson, and Ricardo wasn't able to get that car up to a position like that in the top 12, top 15, then at the end of the day, Helmut Marko is going to say, "I'm sorry, but I'm going with Liam Lawson." And they'll play Danny right back in that reserve role with Red Bull until something happens with Checo, or again, who knows? Maybe they might pull a wild card out and not retain Checo's services next year and put Liam Lawson over there in the Red Bull and leave Danny over in AlphaTauri. But at the end of the day, it's so hard to predict what Red Bull is going to do with Helmut Marko because he's so unpredictable. I mean, nobody thought he was going to put the one kid in there that already got kicked out. Nobody thought they were going to put him in there this past year. Yeah, DeVries. But at the end of the day, that's what he decided to do. And whenever he decides to do something like that, he goes with it.
I mean, Vish, Liam Lawson kid though is pretty impressive. I don't know if he's going to be the number 2 driver for Red Bull, but he's a kid that maybe another team, right? Look, you've got Alfa Romeo, who really hasn't set their lineup yet for next season. You've got maybe some other teams, AlphaTauri again, of course, even Williams, right? So you've got some teams out there that might be looking for someone. And if Liam Lawson puts together a nice run here the next 3 or 4 weeks until Ricardo gets back, he's a kid that could be switching teams and looking to be a driver for another team as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Lesson learned from DeVries, though. He had the one good race of Williams, scored points, and all of a sudden became a hot commodity, even though he was 28. And pretty much everyone concluded he wasn't good enough for Formula One, which was proven out this year. With that said, Liam Lawson's going to get more chances because apparently Ricardo won't be ready until Qatar, is what they're saying now. So there's going to be more opportunities for Liam Lawson. And look, Red Bull, this is the Red Bull team. They have 4 seats. Max is obviously not going anywhere. They can't say the same thing for Yuki and Checo, right? They both are vulnerable here. So you could easily see, Liam Lawson replacing Yuki. Or, if Ricardo gets bumped up, there's another seat at AlphaTauri. So I think there's a pretty decent chance if he keeps performing like this, not this year, but, next year, he gets an AlphaTauri seat. I think it's probably too big of a step for them to just put him into the Red Bull directly. But again, Red Bull has four seats, and they own these contracts, and so obviously Max is one of them. You assume Ricardo will be in AlphaTauri or Red Bull next year. Maybe Checo's back, maybe he's not. Maybe Yuki's back, maybe he's not. But I feel like one of those two would go, and that would open up the spot for Liam Lawson. So I think he'll stay within this team. Probably go back to being a reserve driver when Ricardo's healthy. But I think for next year, he'll probably, based off of his performance, he's already keeping up with Yuki, and he's only been in the car a few weeks. Like I think the writing's on the wall there for Yuki.
It's gonna be exciting for the 2024 season. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of changes, per the usual that F1 likes to be exciting, to surprise us a little bit. So we're looking forward to that. Driver of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Who do you got, Vish? We'll start with you two first, Vish. Who do you got?
Gotta go Carlos. He won driver of the day in the vote for a reason. I think he did a great job. Not just keeping both Red Bulls behind him for an extended period of time, to the point that Max actually comments on, man, it's quick, because he's used to just breezing past everyone. But then kept enough life in the tires that after he got past, the Red Bull pulled away. But a lot of times what you see is when someone battles at the front, they end up shredding their tires to the point that once they get past, they just drop like a stone down and he held second. He held first for several laps, then held second for several laps, and then after finally getting overtaken near the end, finished in third. So for me, it's Carlos. It's not. I don't think it was that close, to be honest. I think.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer for me. It's obviously Carlito, my Tifosi. But yeah, I mean, he did drive brilliantly. So did so did a couple other guys as well. I think I hate to say it, but George did a good job. Obviously, Leclerc did a solid job as well driving. But yeah, it's Carlos.
Man, George got a penalty for illegally cutting a corner so he wouldn't have to overtake a back marker. Man, what are we talking about? Can't give that guy driver of the day.
No credit. No credit.
No credit. Never.
Everybody made a mistake in that race at some point. Going over the race, you can see at some point everybody missed that turn one. Almost
he did it on purpose, especially if you read his comments after. He's talking about there should be a get out of jail free car. He even said didn't want to sit behind Ocon.
Exactly.
Shut up, George.
They should add another 10 seconds. How many seconds did he finish behind Lewis? I think too many. I don't think it's worth the 30-second penalty. But
who do you got? Who's your driver of the day?
Let's go with Albon. Again, Albon ran a great race overall. Being able to stay up there in that top 10 and be able to keep that car, again up there, with these supposedly faster cars. He's showing to the world that he's a top tier driver, and that he's a top tier.
Listen, look out for Albon
in his racecraft. Yeah, for sure.
He's another one that could be moving up, man. I mean, I don't know where, but he could move up somewhere, potentially. So you never know. You never know what's going to happen. But he's
been in a Red Bull. So.
He's been a Red Bull driver. I know. But that didn't last long either. And I mean, it's hard.
Well, for a reason.
Yeah.
But you have to remember. Those Williams. They have the same type of tendencies and the same type of driving characteristics, more like a McLaren, or more like one of the other cars that run those Mercedes engines, even a Mercedes, the same type of thing, because they run the same type of rear suspension, the same type of aerodynamic philosophies,
right.
Overall. So if something happens with Lando, maybe you could see Albon stepping up and going into that McLaren or something like that. They call it crazy season for a reason. Things are going to happen that nobody expects. And like I said before, nobody expected De Vries to be in that AlphaTauri, and there you go, he popped in that AlphaTauri. So Albon to me was the driver of the day. Again, Carl, great race. We can't have all three of us say the same person, so. I'm gonna go with
the one thing I would also, just to throw in with Albon, is he held up the McLarens for basically the entire race. But I will say, when you talk about improving racecraft, both Norris and Piastri, at some point you got to be able to make that overtake, and they kind of just sat there. Hamilton obviously took care of Piastri's business for him, but at that time he was overtaking Piastri, then overtook Norris, he then overtook Albon, and he patiently kind of worked through that in a faster car, and the McLaren was faster, and they just could not get the overtake done, and they kind of sat there for the whole race. And that's where we talk about improving your racecraft, stuff like dropping back for a few laps to cool your tires and set yourself up for an overtake 3 or 4 laps down the road. So they just sat right on his gearbox and they couldn't get around him, and that's great driving by Albon. But also when you look at maturing, that's something Norris and Piastri can work on, because they were in a faster car and should have been able to overtake him at some point.
Yeah. Again, it's the same kind of situation with, like you were just saying, they should have gotten past him. But when you have an extra 3, 4, 5 miles per hour at that end of the straight, that makes it hard in that situation. I agree with you that they should have gotten around it, but especially at a track like Monza where it's, full throttle straightaways, long sweeping turns, and then just those couple of chicanes that are in there, that's where that Williams does have that advantage. And again, even though we like to say that Norris has better racecraft, or Piastri needs to get better with his racecraft, but he's still pretty good, it's going to be difficult to compete with a car that even with you having DRS is still another 3, 4 miles per hour, 5, 10 miles per hour, whatever it may be at the end of that straight faster.
All right, disappointment of the day. Who do you guys got? Go with you, Evan. We'll start with you first.
I'm going to go with Alonso, funny enough. I thought that car was going to be a lot faster going into this race. He ended up in 9th, so he was still in the points. But, I would have liked to have seen that car, with the progressions that they've made the past couple races, just to try to, be in that top 5 or be up there with the McLaren or with, the Williams and the Mercedes to try to, go up against them. But, all the way down in 9th, I thought that he could have done a little bit better with this race, with how fast that car naturally is.
What do you got, Vish?
I don't know if disappointment's the right word because it's kind of expected, but what the hell is Lance Stroll at this point? He's finishing. I mean, we can talk about Alonso, finished in 9th and did not have a good race. Stroll finished 40 seconds behind him. His teammate. They're driving the same car. I mean, this has been every race. I mean, he's been awful. He is so far off the pace. I don't even know what's going on with him. So in a way, you can't say you're disappointed when it's expected. But I think he by far, I mean, Yuki had a better race and he didn't even finish the formation lap. So I thought he had a better race time than Stroll did. But then the other one, we did mention this is a good track for Williams. So this is one of Evan and I talked about this last week. Maybe Vegas is all that's left for Logan Sargent to try and score a point this year. He still is not. Albon scored several. And,
where did he end up this race?
I don't
13.
think it was
13?
13, yeah. He's
so
13.
he was top 15, but you still had Ocon and Tsunoda out for the race. So, would they have been faster than him if they would have finished the race? Maybe. But, at the end of the day, Sargent was right behind Piastri, ahead of Zhou, ahead of Gasly, which was kind of, interesting considering, we all still think that Alpine is a quality team. But,
it was bad this week, though, because
Stroll.
Ocon was way off, too. It was just not a good week for them.
The thing with Stroll,
I'm going to throw one in there that I'm just disappointed because I thought after last season, I know he had a really bad accident last season, but I thought that this season was a season where he can kind of show something. And to me, he just really hasn't shown much as Zhou Guanyu. I'm just disappointed in him as a whole. I know that Alfa Romeo is not great, but you saw Bottas in the points this weekend. Obviously, he's an excellent driver, but and the machinery is not fantastic. But I was expecting a little bit more from Zhou, and he's been a little bit of a letdown this year as a whole. But at some point, he's got to show something. Also, I just don't think he makes it past 2023 at this point either. So kind of disappointed in him.
the problem with that is that being that one Chinese in for the one kind of gives you a little bit of leeway. We're going to Singapore not next week, but the week after. Going to be considered his home race. Hopefully, you see a good amount of fans out there for him. Supporting him, kind of like what we see at Zandvoort for Max. But he just hasn't been able to string it all together. He'll have a good qualifying day where he'll qualify pretty high, and then he messes up in the start of the race. That was a few weeks ago. Right. Where he's got to string that practice strong, qualify strong, race strong in order to really show that he can be the leader of that team, or he can be the main driver, because that team is in transition right now. We all know, it's going to be switching to Audi in a couple of years, when the new regulations come in 2026. So, when they switch over to that, they're going to want to make a splash. You're not going to see a Volkswagen group coming into Formula One just, coming in, lazily. They want to come in and actually, compete and actually be up there. So we'll see what ends up happening with that.
Well, we got Singapore, like you mentioned, we got Singapore in a couple of weeks, and we've got an off week this week, which is good because me and Vish and potentially you haven't got too many things going on this weekend. Obviously, one of the biggest games of the year for the Miami Hurricanes on Saturday as well. So, but we will be back at it next Wednesday to cover the Singapore Grand Prix, and looking forward to that because I think that's going to be a pretty exciting race as well.
Yeah.
We got Vish.
Yeah, no, it'll be a good time. Just we talked about this last week. There's no more European races, so it's Singapore, Japan, Qatar, and then they come here.
Vegas.
Well, then we got Austin first. Vegas
yeah.
is Thanksgiving weekend, if I remember correctly.
That's right. It is.
And it's like 5:00 in the morning and 4:00 in the morning for those two races.
Yeah. Wait. Okay. Now I'm looking at a schedule and it says Vegas is the 16th through the 18th. So it's the week before.
Is it?
I thought.
Why did I think it was Thanksgiving?
No, it was. It was.
Did they move it?
Maybe.
I swear it was, but that's not Thanksgiving weekend.
It was. I don't know. Anyways, we'll get that. We'll get that.
Week before Thanksgiving, according to the FIA, which I think would know. So
Yeah, 16th through the 18th is what I'm seeing here.
We'll see.
that's weird.
Anyways, we'll get that. We'll get that.
Anyway.
sorted out. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at F1_5 Reasons. Check us out. Obviously, you can follow all of us at Twitter as well at Furious_11_ for Evan Vish VRP 2003 and me at Jazz Santana. Check us out every Wednesday on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. Here it is, hitting the apex. Formula One racing show. We'll be back next Wednesday to preview Singapore. See you guys then. Adios. Hey, by the way, Evan, you better have a good fantasy team. That's all I'm telling you.
I'm looking pretty good right now. We'll see how it plays out.
All right. See you guys.